Have you ever wondered if the smallest act of authenticity could change someone's life forever? What if I told you that a forgotten book left behind by a shy cleaning woman would transform not just her fate, but the heart of one of Boston's coldest executives? If you appreciate stories that reveal how ordinary moments can become extraordinary turning points, give this video a like right now and subscribe to our channel. What you're about to hear might forever change how you see the invisible people in your own life. This is the story of Ivy, a woman unseen by most, and Ryan Cooper, a man who had forgotten how to see. It's a reminder that you don't need power to awaken a sleeping heart. You just need to be genuine and leave something sincere behind. Sometimes a book, a single sentence, is enough to help someone start over. And I promise, by the end of this story, you'll discover a twist that connects these two strangers in a way no one could have imagined. Stay with me to uncover their remarkable journey. In the glow of Boston's midnight skyline, when most office buildings stand dark and silent, Ivy Chen moves like a ghost through the halls of Cooper Media. 26 years old, with eyes that held more stories than she'd ever spoken aloud, Ivy preferred the night shift, the emptiness, the quiet, the way the world seemed to pause between yesterday and tomorrow. Her routine was a carefully choreographed dance through the 14-story building. Begin at the top floor, work down. Headphones delivering soft classical music, Bach, mainly, while her hands mechanically emptied trash bins, wiped down surfaces, and vacuumed carpets. Most nights, she encountered only the occasional security guard or fellow cleaner, exchanging silent nods in fluorescent-lit hallways. Cooper Media occupied the gleaming glass tower on Huntington Avenue, its logo, two interlocking C's forming a perfect infinity symbol, illuminated day and night. The company had grown from a modest marketing firm to a multimedia empire under Ryan Cooper's decade of leadership. His reputation preceded him everywhere, brilliant but ruthless, innovative but cold. The Boston Business Journal had dubbed him the architect of efficiency, known for streamlining operations with clinical precision, often at the cost of long-time employees. Every night followed the same rhythm: vacuum, dust, sanitize, repeat. The executives whose offices she cleaned were just names on doors to her, and she was nothing to them. Not even a face. Just the mysterious entity who made coffee rings disappear and trash bins empty themselves. Ivy's apartment was a cramped studio in Dorchester, furnished with second-hand pieces and lit by strings of fairy lights. The walls were lined with bookshelves, her one indulgence. Classics mainly, with dog-eared pages and broken spines. Books rescued from yard sales, thrift stores, and library discards. Each one a world she could slip into when her own became too solitary. But Ivy carried a special secret with her every night, tucked inside her cleaning cart. A worn copy of The Little Prince, its pages soft from 1,000 readings, its cover faded like a well-loved memory. In the quiet moments between tasks, she would find her way to the eastern stairwell, perch on the cold steps and read by the glow of emergency lights. All grown-ups were once children, she would whisper to herself, although few of them remember it. Her mother had worked marvels with a modest immigrant's salary, sacrificing to put Ivy through community college. Literature major, though it had led nowhere professionally. Now her mother was gone, taken by an aggressive cancer 5 years earlier, leaving Ivy alone in a city too busy to notice her grief. Her mother had given her the book shortly before cancer took her. "This was given to me by someone who saved my life once," her mother had told her. "Not by doing something grand, but by reminding me to see with my heart." The inscription inside, "To Ryan, love always Emma," had always puzzled Ivy. Who were Ryan and Emma? Her mother never explained, only saying that books sometimes find their rightful owners in mysterious ways. Some nights, Ivy would pause, at the massive windows on the 15th floor, looking out at the city that never fully slept. Boston's lights reflected on the Charles River like scattered stars. For those moments, standing in the silent grandeur of a building she could never afford to work in during daylight hours, she felt strangely powerful, a witness to a version of the city few ever saw. The other cleaning staff rarely stayed long. The hours were difficult, the pay mediocre, the work thankless. But Ivy found a strange peace in the routine, in being invisible yet essential. There was honesty in it, clarity. No pretense, unlike the corporate games played during daylight hours, which she glimpsed in emails left open on screens and notes scribbled on whiteboards. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in late autumn, Ivy pushed her cart into the executive floor. The CEO's corner office, Ryan Cooper's domain, was usually locked, but tonight the door stood slightly ajar. Company gossip painted Cooper as ruthless, a man who fired employees for showing a hint of inefficiency. At 37, he had built Cooper Media into a powerhouse by being calculating and cold. Whispers in the break room spoke of the Cooper freeze, the icy stare that preceded termination. Others told of 16-hour workdays and impossible standards. Few had actually met him, and those who had rarely spoke of the experience with fondness. Yet the company thrived under his exacting leadership, expanding into digital media, acquisitions, and international markets with remarkable success. Ivy slipped inside, moving efficiently through her cleaning routine. The office was immaculate, already minimal with a glass desk, ergonomic chair, and floor-to-ceiling windows. No personal photos, no mementos, just sleek technology and precisely arranged furniture. As she wiped down his immaculate desk, her book tumbled from her pocket onto the polished surface. She placed it aside, intending to grab it before leaving, but then came the sound of voices in the hall, the security guard making rounds with someone. Startled, Ivy grabbed her cart and slipped out through a side door, only realizing as the elevator doors closed that her book remained behind, sitting prominently on the CEO's desk. The next morning, exhausted from a sleepless day worrying about her lost treasure, Ivy arrived for her shift to find Lana, Cooper's assistant, waiting by the supply closet. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a smile that never reached her eyes, Lana had always looked through Ivy as if she were made of glass. "Yuka, the CEO wants to see you," Lana said, eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Immediately. And bring that book of yours." Ivy's heart plummeted. Had he fired people for less, leaving personal items, contaminating his sacred space? But, "I don't have—" "He has it," Lana cut her off. "Just go to the 15th floor now." Perhaps it was exhaustion or resignation, but as Ivy rode the elevator upward, a strange calm settled over her. If this job ended tonight, she would find another. She always did. The elevator opened directly into a waiting area where Lana's desk stood sentinel before massive double doors. With a pointed look, Lana pressed a button. "She's here, Mr. Cooper. Send her in." The voice through the intercom was deep, controlled, revealing nothing. With trembling hands, Ivy pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the lion's den. What awaits Ivy behind those imposing office doors could be the end of her job, or the beginning of something extraordinary. The book that accidentally slipped from her pocket might seem insignificant, just paper and ink bound together, but sometimes the most ordinary objects become bridges between souls who were meant to find each other. Before we continue Ivy's journey, take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. This channel is dedicated to stories that remind us of the extraordinary power of ordinary moments and the connections that shape our lives in unexpected ways. Hit that subscribe button now so you never miss a story that might just change your perspective. Now imagine yourself in Ivy's position, heart racing, palms sweating, stepping into the office of someone who could determine your fate with a single word. The book that brought comfort during lonely nights now threatens to upend her entire life. But what if this apparent mistake is actually the beginning of something meaningful? Let's find out what happens when the invisible woman meets the man who sees only numbers and results. Ryan Cooper stood with his back to her, a silhouette against floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Boston skyline. Without turning, he spoke. "Are you in the habit of leaving personal items in executives' offices?" His voice carried no anger, only a detached curiosity that somehow felt more dangerous. In his left hand, between long fingers, dangled her book. "No, sir," Ivy managed, her voice smaller than she'd intended. "It was an accident. I apologize." The morning light cast sharp angles across the room, illuminating gleaming surfaces and modern art pieces that probably cost more than Ivy's annual salary. A large abstract painting dominated one wall, splashes of blue and grey that reminded her of a storm at sea. The office held no family photos, no personal touches beyond the sleek, impersonal aesthetic of power. He turned then, and Ivy was struck by how different he looked up close compared to the company photos. Yes, there was the same sharp jawline, the same perfectly tailored suit, but his eyes, they held something the photographs never captured, something hollow. Ryan Cooper had built his reputation on calculated decisions and unsentimental business acumen. The financial press called him the machine for his ability to assess situations without emotional interference. 6 feet tall with dark hair graying slightly at the temples, he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being the most powerful person in any room. An accident, he repeated, studying her. And yet, quite a specific accident, wouldn't you say? He opened the book to its first page where the faded inscription remained visible. To Ryan, love always... Emma. Ivy's confusion must have shown on her face. My name is Ryan, he said slowly. And Emma was my sister. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Ivy blinked, trying to process his words. I don't understand. That book belonged to my mother. She died 5 years ago. Something flickered across his face, disbelief, suspicion, and something else. Pain, perhaps. He set the book down carefully on his desk and walked to the window, hands clasped, behind his back. For nearly a minute he said nothing, just stared out at the Boston skyline as if searching for answers, in the geometry of buildings and sky. What was your mother's name? He asked, his voice suddenly intent. Grace Chen. The name hung between them in the quiet office. Somewhere a clock ticked softly. Ivy shifted her weight, uncertain whether to remain standing or to flee. The gravity of the moment held her in place. Ryan Cooper sank into his chair, staring at the book as if it might burn him. Grace Chen, he repeated. From the Riverside Community Support Group. Ivy nodded slowly. She volunteered there. For years, counseling mostly. His fingers traced the worn edges of the book. The impenetrable CEO facade seemed to crack slightly, revealing glimpses of someone else beneath, someone with memories and wounds that the business world never saw. Cooper opened a drawer and withdrew a photo frame, turning it to face her. Inside was a picture of a young woman with his eyes and a brilliant smile, arm in arm with an older Asian woman, Ivy's mother. My sister Emma had leukemia, he said quietly. During her treatment, she joined that support group. Your mother was her counselor. Ivy stared at the photograph, memories shuffling into new configurations. Her mother had worked with many patients, but she remembered mentions of a young woman who had faced her illness with extraordinary courage. Emma gave this book to your mother before she died, Cooper continued. I never knew what happened to it. I assumed it was lost when we cleaned out her apartment. His fingers traced the inscription lightly. Emma gave me this book on my 12th birthday. I was already too grown up for children's stories, I told her. She inscribed it anyway, telling me I'd understand someday. And then, years later, when she was sick, she asked for it back. Ivy remembered her mother's voice during those final days in the hospital, weak but determined. Books are living things, Ivy. They find their way to the people who need them most. The silence that followed felt like a living thing between them. Ivy thought of her mother's words. Books sometimes find their rightful owners in mysterious ways. I think, Ivy said carefully, she meant for it to find its way back to you. Her words seemed to land with unexpected weight. Cooper looked at her, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time, not as a cleaning staff member, not as an interruption, but as a connection to something precious he had lost. Tomorrow, he said, his businesslike tone returning, I want you to report to this floor. There's been a reallocation of cleaning assignments. Fear flashed through Ivy. Was this a demotion? Punishment? You'll be responsible for this floor now, he continued. The executive level could use someone with attention to detail. As Ivy turned to leave, stunned, he added, "And Miss Chen, your book will remain here for now, and I have some reading to catch up on." The following weeks brought subtle but unmistakable changes. Ivy found herself assigned to day shifts, cleaning. The executive floor, while its occupants worked. Cooper would acknowledge her with a nod when their paths crossed, something unheard of from a CEO to cleaning staff. The executive floor buzzed with quiet confusion at the shift. Who was this cleaning woman who received actual eye contact? From the untouchable Ryan Cooper. Whispers followed Ivy through hallways, intensifying when Cooper was observed holding a door open for her one morning. The gesture was small, professional, but in the charged atmosphere of corporate politics, it was equivalent to a public declaration. Her new schedule meant Ivy saw more of the company's inner workings. She observed meetings through glass walls, watched the hierarchy in action during lunch breaks, noticed which executives worked past sunset and which left precisely at 5. She became intimately familiar with the rhythm of the executive floor, when the traders arrived, earliest, when marketing took coffee breaks, 10:30 a.m. like clockwork, and when Ryan Cooper emerged from his office, rarely before the others had gone. She also witnessed Lana's methodical efficiency, how she controlled access to Cooper with smiling ruthlessness, how junior executives feared her displeasure almost as much as his. Lana watched Ivy with increasingly thinly veiled suspicion, her perfect smile tightening whenever Cooper acknowledged the cleaner's presence. On a rain-soaked Tuesday, Ivy arrived to find a sterling silver bookmark on her cart, a simple design with a small constellation etched into its surface. No note, no explanation, just the quiet luxury of the object itself, gleaming against her worn cleaning supplies. She knew, without being told, who it was from. But Lana noticed. Her whispers spread through the office like poisonous gas, sleeping her way to the top. Using some kind of sympathy story, has him wrapped around her finger. The rumors reached critical mass when Cooper was spotted, personally showing Ivy the newly renovated company library, a space previously used for storage. The room had transformed practically overnight. Bookshelves from floor to ceiling now lined walls that once stored obsolete technology and forgotten marketing materials. A comfortable reading nook with leather chairs sat beneath a skylight, and most surprising of all, a framed photograph of Emma Cooper hung beside the entrance, beneath a quote from The Little Prince, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly." Ivy had stood speechless in the doorway, as Cooper explained in his matter-of-fact tone that the company was implementing a literary enrichment initiative for employees. That studies showed reading increased empathy and creative thinking. That the space would be open to all staff members during breaks. What he didn't say, what hung unspoken between them, was that this space existed because of a book accidentally left behind, because of connections neither of them had planned. It. "Seems our CEO has developed an interest in the cleaning staff," Lana remarked loudly, to a group of executives as Ivy passed. "Perhaps we should all consider a career change." The laughter that followed burned Ivy's ears as she hurried away, cart rattling before her. That evening, as she emptied trash bins in the conference room, Mr. Bennett, the logistics manager, entered. At 53, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind horn-rimmed glasses, Bennett had always treated the support staff with respect. "Don't let them dim your light," he said simply, placing a cup of coffee beside her. "Some people build themselves up by breaking others down." Ivy stared at the cup. "I didn't ask for any of this attention." "No," Bennett agreed. "But sometimes life hands us roles we didn't audition for." He paused. "Did you know I was an English teacher for 20 years before coming here?" Ivy shook her head. Bennett ran his fingers along the conference table's polished surface. "I taught The Little Prince every year to my sophomores. It's remarkable how a children's book contains more wisdom than most adult philosophy texts." He looked at her knowingly. "I've noticed the changes in Cooper. Small things. He asked about my daughter's college graduation yesterday. First personal question he's asked in the 3 years I've worked for him. The greatest stories are about people who find their voice when they thought they were voiceless," he said. "If you're just a good floor cleaner, that already has value. But if you make someone read again, you're doing something much more important. He left her with those words and the cooling coffee, but something warm had ignited inside her chest, a spark of something like courage. The next morning, Ivy found a note on her cart. Ryan Cooper's precise handwriting. My office, 2 p.m. When she arrived, he didn't look up from his computer. Close the door. She did, standing awkwardly as he finished typing. Finally, he looked up. I've been reading The Little Prince again, he said. Emma was right, of course, and I understand it now. He stood, walking to the window. There's a company event next week, annual planning presentation. I'm announcing a new initiative, and I'd like you to be there. Ivy blinked in surprise. Me? But I'm just the person who reminded me why this company exists in the first place, he interrupted. Sometimes we need to see through fresh eyes. The day of the presentation arrived with a hurricane of whispers. Ivy sat in the back row of the auditorium, ignored by the hundreds of employees in business attire. Cooper took the stage to polite applause, his presence commanding immediate attention. He spoke about quarterly results, upcoming projects, restructuring plans, all the expected corporate rhetoric. And then he paused. I want to talk about something else now, something personal. The room grew still. 5 years ago, I lost my sister to leukemia. In many ways, I lost myself too. I built this company with efficiency and profit as my guiding stars because they were measurable, controllable. I forgot that businesses are built by people for people. He held up a small, worn book. Ivy's breath caught. This book found its way back to me recently, through an extraordinary coincidence. It reminded me that what we see clearly is often invisible to the eye. He smiled slightly. That's Saint-Exupéry, for those of you who haven't read The Little Prince. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. Today I'm announcing Red Forward, a company initiative, providing books to underserved schools and communities. For every project we complete, we will donate a collection to a school library. Applause, tentative at first, then enthusiastic. This idea, Cooper continued when the room quieted, came from someone who works among us largely unseen. Someone who cleans up our messes and rarely receives a thank you. Someone who accidentally left a book on my desk and inadvertently changed the direction of this company. His eyes found Ivy in the back row. Ms. Chen, would you join me on stage? The silence was absolute as hundreds of heads turned. Lana's face had gone pale. Mr. Bennett smiled encouragingly. On legs that felt disconnected from her body, Ivy walked the long aisle to the stage. The walk to the stage felt endless. Each step carried Ivy further from the shadows she had inhabited for so long, into a light she had never sought. The weight of hundreds of eyes pressed against her, some curious, some suspicious. A few, like Mr. Bennett's, filled with quiet pride. As she reached the stage, Ryan Cooper extended his hand. Professional, respectful. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen before. Gratitude. Ivy Chen has been with us for 3 years, he announced to the stunned audience. Most of you have never noticed her, which says more about us than it does about her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Ivy stood stiffly, hands clasped before her, hyper-aware of her cleaning uniform among the sea of business attire. I have a question for everyone in this room, Cooper continued. How many of you can name the person who cleans your office? Who ensures your workspace is sanitized during flu season? Who silently supports your productivity every day? The uncomfortable shifting of bodies answered his question. We pride ourselves on being a company that sees the bigger picture, yet we miss the details right in front of us, the people who make our work possible. He turned to Ivy. Would you like to say something about the Red Forward initiative? Panic flashed through her. Public speaking had never been her strength. But as she looked out at the crowd, she spotted Mr. Bennett's encouraging nod, and something inside her steadied. I believe, she began softly, then cleared her throat and tried again. I believe books find the people who need them most. Her voice grew stronger with each word. My mother was a counselor who worked with people facing terrible diagnoses. She always said that stories were bridges between strangers, between past and future, between who we are and who we might become. Looking directly at Cooper, she continued, "One special patient gave her this book before passing away. My mother treasured it, and when she was dying she gave it to me, saying it would find its rightful owner someday." She turned back to the audience. "I never understood what she meant until now. This book traveled from Mr. Cooper to his sister Emma, from Emma to my mother, from my mother to me, and finally back to Mr. Cooper, completing a circle none of us could have planned." The auditorium had fallen completely silent. Maybe that's what Red Forward should really be about. Not just donating books, but creating connections. Helping stories find the people who need them most, when they need them most. When she finished, there was a moment of perfect stillness before the applause began, hesitant at first, then building to a sustained ovation. Ivy caught sight of Lana, arms firmly crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. The weeks that followed brought changes no one could have anticipated. Ivy was offered a position as the Read Forward program coordinator, a role created specifically around her natural talent for connecting the right books with the right readers. The rumor mill ground to a halt when Cooper addressed the executive team directly about the unacceptable gossip and harassment directed at Ivy. Lana was transferred to a different department after an HR investigation revealed she had violated multiple company policies. Cooper Media's first book donation went to the oncology ward, where Emma had spent her final months. Ivy and Ryan delivered the books personally, neither of them speaking much as they arranged colorful volumes on previously empty shelves. Some wounds needed silence to heal. One evening, months later, Ivy was working late in her new office, a small but bright space near the company library, when Ryan appeared at her door. "I have something for you," he said, placing her copy of The Little Prince on her desk. A bookmark protruded from its pages. Ivy opened to the marked page where Ryan had underlined, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." Beneath it, he had written in his precise handwriting, "Adults were all once children, though few of them remember it. Thank you for helping me remember." When she looked up, he was already gone. The car. Next morning, Ivy arrived to find the company abuzz. Overnight, small note cards had appeared on every employee's desk with quotes about seeing the invisible, recognizing the overlooked, and the power of small kindnesses. Each card directed employees to look inside their desk drawers, where they found copies of The Little Prince. By noon, the company library was filled with people reading during their lunch breaks. By the end of the week, a volunteer program was established for employees to read to patients at local hospitals. 6 months after Ivy had accidentally left her book on the CEO's desk, Cooper Media was featured in Business Weekly's Companies Transforming Corporate Culture issue. The article highlighted how a single book had sparked a movement within the organization, improving employee satisfaction and community engagement. When reporters asked Ryan Cooper about the transformation, he simply said, "Sometimes the most valuable people in an organization are the ones we fail to see. And sometimes the most important lessons come from the stories we think we've outgrown." Ivy kept the newspaper clipping in her desk drawer, next to a small framed photo Ryan had given her, of Emma and her mother, arms linked, both smiling into the camera on what must have been one of their last days together. She often thought about the unlikely chain of events that had led her here, how her book had traveled through decades and grief and chance to connect strangers, how her mother had known somehow that the circle would close, and on difficult days, when budget meetings ran long or logistics fell through, Ivy would open her drawer, look at that photograph, and remember the truth she now lived by. You don't need power to awaken a sleeping heart. You just need to be genuine and leave something sincere behind. Sometimes a book, a simple act of authenticity, or a moment of truly seeing another person is enough to help someone begin again. This story reminds us that the smallest acts of sincerity can create ripples we never imagined. If something in this tale touched you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it today. The greatest gift we can give each other is the reminder that we are seen, that we matter, that our presence in this world, however quiet, makes a difference. Thank you for spending this time with Ivy and Ryan's journey. Until next time, remember to look with your heart at the people in your life who might feel invisible. The book that connected Ivy and Ryan carried a profound truth. What's essential is often invisible to the eye. In your life, who are the unsung heroes you might be overlooking? The security guard who greets you each morning, the person who delivers your mail, the colleague whose quiet contributions make your work possible. I invite you to join our community of storytellers and meaning seekers by subscribing to this channel. More importantly, I challenge you to perform one act of recognition today. Acknowledge